Hi, my name is Ryan, and this is my 1996 850 CIA BMW. It has the 5.4 liter V12 M73 engine, which is the second generation of BMW's V12 engines. This was in this car from 1994 till it ended production in 1997. And this car, there was only 363 total production for North America for this car with this engine. There was a total of 1,210 of an E31 850s with the M73 engines, making it the lowest production regular 850 that they made. This is a base model BMW 850 Ci for 1996. It retailed in 1996 for $96,650, which for in the 90s, that was the most expensive car BMW had to date. The cars averaged, when they had all the options, between $95,000 and $115,000 in the early to mid 90s. A little history on this car. This car has a little over 171,000 miles on it. I've had it since I've had it for 3 years, and I bought it at 158,000 miles on it. I'm the third owner of this car, if you don't count the guy that flipped it to me. I don't know about the first owner. The second owners bought this car in 2000 for $55,000, and I have a stack of receipts from the dealership for about another $70,000 in work. When they changed this car to the new motor, if you're familiar with BMWs, they do what they call like an LCI, a life cycle improvement. This wasn't officially an LCI car, but enough of it changed that they changed enough on it for this new motor. So the strut towers that I needed to put the springs in were only for this chassis, and having them only made a little over 1,300 of these cars total production, they were kind of hard to come by. It took me about 6 months to source the proper struts to replace the EDC shocks in the front. So the rears are just bolt on. So I removed the 283 open, and I put in a 345 limited slip differential in the back to give it a little more pep out of the corner and make it grip a little bit better so both wheels will grip the ground under acceleration. And it's really the only thing you can do to this car to make it any faster. They do sell turbo kits. Our Dynan makes a turbo kit, but that makes the car very unreliable. And this car was rare enough as it is, I didn't want to have to do too much motor work on it. And so it's got all refreshed suspension. I have the CSI sway bars, which are thicker than the standard sway bars, to give it a little more cornering, because I'm a road racer at heart, so I wanted to make sure this thing could turn. I did have to replace the transmission 2 months after I bought it. It had a catastrophic failure. But since then I have learned everything about the ZF5 HP30 transmission and have rebuilt one in my basement. All the work I do on this myself, the dealership will not touch it because they're afraid to break anything on it. Independents said they will. I can do just as good a job as an independent, so I've done all the work on myself in my garage on jack stands, including changing the transmission and the entire suspension, rear subframe, and everything in my garage. This is my end-all car. I don't need a Ferrari. I do like Ferraris, but you know, this is my dream car. And I was at a point in my life where it matched that I had the finances and the market had dipped enough that I could afford one. And I started doing a little searching and I purchased this car. This is only the second one I've seen in real life, is the one I purchased. I was talking to a gentleman today that worked in Chicago at Motorworks, and Michael Jordan had 2 of these. This car has been on the track. This car, I did a charity event at Road America called Drive for Babies. It was a track day event. Unfortunately, it was in the rain. So I've done Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin in the rain, which really showed off the advanced traction control that this car has. My instructor would constantly compliment me on my saves coming out of the wet corners, and I said, oh no, that's all BMW. I've had it on track days at the Milwaukee Mile with the track event I work with there. I think that's going to be it for its track days, though. It's not really a track-built car. It's a cruiser. It's a long haul car. But it's one of the original Grand Tours. This car is pretty much done. The paint needs to be done. I'm going to attempt to repair most of the body paint because it is relatively new. The bumper needs to come off and be stripped and be totally redone. The front bumper. Other than that, there's really not a whole lot left to do to this car. Maybe sort out the rear seats, but it's pretty much set. I'm actually looking to move on to more of the BMW big coupes. I've got my eye on a couple of different E24s, 635 CSIs, so that kind of get the lineage of it all. Get the 635, and then I also like a mid-2000s M6 with the V10 in it. I'm a flagman for SCCA and professional racing, travel all over the country, working corners at IMSA and IndyCar events, vintage events. I've worked at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Detroit Grand Prix, Sebring, of course Road America, and other pro events for flagging. You know, kind of that's my motorsports. You know, I'm very involved in the motorsports community. So here we are driving my 1996 850 Ci. A couple of interesting driving stuff with this. This is the Sportronic, which is BMW's first automatic manual transmission, 5-speed. Other things are interior features that I talked about the radio. The windows will roll up on their own at 90 miles an hour.
Really?
And it says in the book, so you can continue your conversation. It kind of has its roots in the BMW M1, and you can tell from the front end. However, the M1 only had an inline 6. And that was only a car made purely for homologation, so they could race it.
Right.
There's only 400 examples of the M1 made, which was the minimum for the FIA to run the car on the racetrack.
Yeah. One of the things that I find incredibly interesting about this car is it's a V12, and it's also kind of two straight sixes put together. I mean,
it is.
Each engine kind of doesn't have its own battery.
Correct. This is basically two engines that are slapped together side by side. The 5-liter, the original M70 engine, was really more of the two engines slapped together. It was two M20 engines, inline 6, 2.5-liter inline 6 engines slapped together. When they upgraded, when they made their changes to M73, they've learned a lot about the architecture of the V12 engine, and it's more. It is two of everything. You got two engine controllers, two throttle bodies, two distributor caps, two mass airflow sensors, and it will actually run independently on either side. It's part of the German redundancy that if you break down, it's going to get you home. One note of note for this engine, the M73, is the basis for the S73 in the McLaren F1.
Oh, really?
So McLaren, yes, you know, McLaren has a lot of BMW parts, and the McLaren engineers saw the M73 engine and decided they were going to use that architecture as the basis for the McLaren F1 S73 engine.
Now, one of the other things that I heard about this particular V12 is it's very much hailed for its smoothness, and you can kind of get that in the start, in the rev. You kind of get that feeling. It's not rah rah rah. It's not like burning.
Correct.
Like it's very smooth. And I've seen a video on YouTube actually where some people have actually put a quarter in the engine, or not in the engine, but like on top of the header.
On the engine cover, it started in England because it was a 50p piece, and they're a little bit thicker.
Yeah.
And they even put it on there through startup. That's how smooth it is. So if you take the inherent smoothness of an inline 6 and you double it, it's super smooth. The specs are, this is from the factory, 326 horsepower and 321 pound-feet of torque.
Sure.
Which for the mid-90s, that's nothing to sneeze at. That was more than a stock Corvette in the 90s, and really was it is great power delivery. You have to source parts all over the world for this. Yeah. I've gotten custom bushings from Germany. The door handles were repaired by a guy in California. The seats were from a guy in California. The electrical expert is a guy in England. He does YouTube videos too on it.
Cool.
So I have to give a shout out. All these guys will watch it, so I have to give a shout out to Alec Cardio in LA, Stefan Steger in Texas, Tim Meeks in England.
Yep.
You know, all these guys, the E31 community. I'll give a little power here.
Oh, here we go. Here's the power. There it is. Yeah, it's like a shine.
No, this will keep up with Dave's 3 Series.
Yeah.
It's just a little different delivery. I've had this thing up to 140. That was before I did the suspension, and it's just super smooth all the way up there. Like all BMWs, it's electronically limited at 155. The earlier models they had chip programming, so you could swap in chips. The M73 is a flash program, and nobody's done a performance program for it.
Oh, really?
So I haven't had it tuned. There's really not a whole lot. I'd like to keep the reliability and some originalness. I'm torn between keeping original and doing what I can, because it does have 171,000 miles on it. I will have this car till the day it dies, till it goes into a parts car. So I try and do what I can to keep it original in spirit with modern materials and technology, which can only improve this car.
Fantastic car. I'm glad I got a chance to learn about it because they are so rare, and it does have so much character. So thank you so much for your time and sharing this with me, and I had a blast.
Awesome. Thank you.